They should give us some level of protection.
I guess that depends on what we need protection from.
You afraid you're gonna run into a Titan? Where's your sense of adventure?
Beware, spoiler phobes! You have stumbled into A Storm of Spoilers, a podcast that is incredibly frustrated that these characters are not talking to each other. This podcast is split into 3 sections. In the first section we call The Calm, Neil and I will cover the penultimate episode of the 2nd season of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, titled Ends of the Earth, that brings the season full circle back to Skull Island. Then, in a short Storm section, we'll use the finale's description and the events of this episode to guess on how big of a fight we're gonna have. Finally, in our 3rd segment, the Godzilla Project, Neil has to sell you and the world on Godzilla Awakening for the marketing phase. Why, hello again. I'm Dave Gonzalez.
And I'm Neil Miller, and welcome back to A Storm of Spoilers. It's great to have you. A little bit of housekeeping before we get going. Next week, mercifully, we only have one more episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters to cover. As the show will conclude its 2nd season with its, what is this, the 10th episode? Yeah, 10th episode.
Mm-hmm.
That will come out on Friday. Our podcast, of course, will be on Saturday, and then we will be free until the next season, and then we will decide if we're even going to cover that. But you know, we'll be free to look forward to the next Godzilla movie at the very least.
Yeah.
Yes. And then for us, we'll be taking a little bit of a break, I believe a week or 2. And then we will be moving back to the fertile shores of Westeros to prepare for House of the Dragon. We will also be migrating a lot of our previous video stuff. Dave's going to be moving it from our Dave and Neil YouTube over to the Storm of Spoilers YouTube. So if you're bored during that period, you can watch our Alien Earth coverage, our Welcome to Derry coverage, our Andor Season 2 pods on the YouTube page. And, you know, that'll keep you occupied while we're gone. And then
I would suggest if you could take some gore, but you like stupid stories with time travel, Welcome to Derry Season 1.
See, there you go.
Some before we go back to Westeros.
And if you can handle clowns.
Yes.
And then following that very short break, we will be back with a little bit of Rethrones. We're going to Rethrones the first 2 seasons of House of the Dragon, and we will prepare for our episode by episode breakdown of season 3 and what hopes to be the big spectacle of the summer. We shall see. So that is what is ahead for us. How do you get in touch with this show in the meantime? And really, you can get in touch with us about any of those topics. Doesn't have to be about Monarch Legacy of Monsters if you've already moved on from that emotionally. You can send us a raven, stormofspoilers@gmail.com. Questions, corrections, theories, lore questions, anything that you want to say in anticipation of House of the Dragon Season 3 would be fine. Because, you know, obviously, or if you want to give us thoughts on season 1 and 2, we'll read those during our Rethrones pods. That'll be fun. And as always, you can review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us that 5-star rating. Say whatever it is you want. We got multiple reviews this week, Dave. I'm going to read one, and I'm going to save another one just in case we don't get any more for next week so that I have something to read next week. But here's the one I'm reading this week. It's from Just Good. And the title is Miss Euron and Joanna, but it's still a 5-star cast. Happy to report that Euron at least will be back when we get back to House of the Dragon. But the review is as follows. Been a listener since when GOT was new. Followed them through Trial by Content, and now here. Easily one of my top 3 never miss it pop culture shows. I feel bad when we have to suffer through Monarch right now, but that has only further pushed me to join the Patreon version to listen along with Dark. If I could give the guys some sincere advice, it would be to, without explanation, immediately pivot to covering the way, way better Apple show For All Mankind. Like, just start doing it as if they've been discussing it all along. Keep Neil's Godzilla movie game, but act like Lee Shaw broke the timeline and poof, what Monarch show. I love this idea. This is great. So thank you. Also, thank you for giving us a nice little plug there for the Dark watch, which is a much, much better show about time travel. But we'll come back to that here. More housekeeping. We are also at youtube.com/at a storm of spoilers, where you can get us in video form. And as I mentioned, you'll be able to get more than just our Monarch and what else is on that page? United Seven Kingdoms coverage.
Yep. Those are there right now, but more playlists coming.
The full back catalog is going to be there. And as always, we want to give a shout out to the Evolved Godzilla by Pumpkin that we were using under the Creative Commons license, because Dave, of course, did not want to model Godzilla himself. So we just got a really awesome one. And I think it looks great. You can also, very importantly, as our reviewer this week mentioned, join us at patreon.com/Da7e and Neil, Da7e&Neil. If you'd like to provide material support for this entire enterprise, you will also get stuff. You will get more podcasts every week, including the Pop Culture Adventure Pod, where we talk about other TV shows. We do deep dives on movies. We've got a really fun every year that we've done the Pop Culture Adventure. This is now the 5th year that we have done this. We do May of the Dead, where we do a series of movies that involve the dead, and that can take many forms. But this year, it is May of the Undead, and we will be celebrating the cinema of vampires in May. So starting with 1931's Dracula and going on to some other really fun vampire movies. So join us over on Patreon for that. You also get access to our wonderful Slack, which is a fantastic community of human beings that is way better than your social media feed, I assure you. And if you join at the highest level, you will get in on that Dark Watch project. That is the small council level. That is where our rewatch pods go. We have completed Twin Peaks, The Leftovers, Hannibal, and we are now, as of this week, 3 episodes into the German Netflix time travel murder-ish mystery show Dark. We're not entirely sure if it's a murder mystery yet, but we're having a really good time and laying out a bunch of cool theories. And if you've seen Dark, you get to go into the Slack channel where Dave and I cannot go, which is the Storm channel, and make fun of whatever theories that we are coming up with that I'm sure are way off. So it's, I guess, worth the price of admission just for that. So there you go. Join us on Patreon. Join us on YouTube. Join us in the future for other stuff, and send us emails. There you go. That's all the housekeeping, Dave. Let's talk about this alleged Godzilla show.
Let's. We're going to start off with the email from Eve that says, I've been enjoying your podcast more than Monarch. I watched the first season a couple of months ago over a weekend. I really liked it, but like you, I've soured on the show. And the reason is the song I had stuck in my head the whole first weekend, 3 by Britney Spears. That song covered the human relationships that I cared about most. 1950s, not quite a throuple, but this season has been dull. The relationships are no longer interesting. I have no song in my head. It doesn't have to be a sexy song. I would have been happy to have We Are Family by Sister Sledge to cover the Randa family dynamic, but those relationships make no sense this season. My question for you, what can the show do next season and in the spinoff to get us to care about the characters? And I want to start here, Neil, because I'm not quite sure if we're have the ability to be like, what can the spinoff do quite yet?
Sure.
Because I think part of the problem of this second season that is clarified here for me in episode 9 of the season is that they thought they were slow playing the not a throuple throughout the entire season, whether it was like Lee and Keiko hooked up, or like Bill's on like this brokenhearted journey, but also like abandon his son. They thought they were forefronting this relationship, but because of the way it's mixed with the kaiju plot and the modern day Randas who make no logical sense in why they do anything, I feel like this episode, if any episode this season, does sort of address the longing of the throuple, and that might be the most positive thing that I could say about it.
Yeah.
Is like, we understand now what Bill was doing during all of this time before he died on Skull Island. We get a retcon about why Bill was on Skull Island in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that time period was while Lee was also in the Axis Mundi. So his journey from season 1, where he was doing the same thing, which was basically biding his time until he had the technology to go get Keiko. That not quite a throuple is at the center of this show. They just didn't know how to like keep the gravity of it there for whatever reason.
Right. I believe the thought that I had going through my mind, especially as I was watching the scene where we flash back to Bill and Keiko going and getting married, was, oh, they remembered this. They remembered this plot line and how important it is to the show. And I think that maybe they overestimated how much drama they could squeeze out of like the reverberations of this relationship and how it would affect the future generations of Randas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they may have overestimated how much we would care about Hiroshi in the end,
right?
Because as maybe some of the lesser parts of this episode come back to, we're still trying to maybe get Hiroshi back. And I think that, they really did lose sight of what was interesting about that first season, which was finding a good balance between the sort of mysteries that we were unlocking in the modern timeline and the human drama that was playing out in the past that didn't have as much to do with the mysteries, but was also giving us some important sort of backstory to the mysteries. So I very much agree with Eve that it is sort of the lack of and I also think that it does have a lot to do with the fact that the Randa kids, the grandkids, are just really frustrating, like extremely frustrating in this episode, especially. Like the relationship between Kate and Kentaro is just very poorly constructed at this point. Like I get that they are not bonded, right? Because they literally just met in Showtime, a couple months ago? I guess a couple years ago at this point, given the time jump. But like they haven't known each other that long as siblings, so they didn't like grow up together. So we can't necessarily expect them to have a strong bond, but they are making decisions that don't entirely feel logical.
Yeah. And I'm going to bring up in my recap all the times that Kate and Kentaro irk me this episode for being our method of treading water and not even getting to be on a cool location like the other treading water scenes this episode, but just being in like some concrete hallways, refusing to talk to each other. So what can the show do next season to get us to care about the characters? Do something with the grandkids?
Sure.
I think is positive.
This might be controversial, but kill off the grandkids.
Kill off the grandkids would be interesting.
I'm looking at Kentaro.
If we're dealing with we could undo time, there is a way to go save the throuple, but are they willing to break the monster verse to save the throuple show? I guess is the question that Monarch has to ask itself.
Well, here's the thing. If Kurt Russell doesn't want to come back for a third season, which I think is the big question that looms over the show every season, which is like, are we going to be able to get the biggest star in our cast back? Then let's find a way. And you don't have to have like a super tightly packed logical reason for any of this. We're willing to accept stupidity from this show, especially with the time travel. Let's find a way to get the throuple back together. And let's get rid of some of these grandkids. Let's bring the throuple into the main timeline for all I care. And let's bring that dynamic back. Like I could care less if they go back in time and rip young Bill Randa out of time and pull him into the future. Fine, whatever. That actually to me is a much better option than bringing Hiroshi back, because he was arced out several episodes before he died. So I think that, if they want to do anything, and if they're not going to get Kurt back, then bring the throuple back, or conversely, with regard to the spinoff, can you inject that throuple into the spinoff in some way?
Right. Which I think could be possible depending on how much you could change in the past. And I wish this episode addressed that at all, but we aren't going to talk about that. Let's talk about what actually happens in this episode. Gotta love an episode that starts with a storm, Neil. Some good sounds right there up at the top for us.
Great stuff.
Titan X flees into the barrier storm that surrounds Skull Island, pursued by Godzilla and Monarch Outpost Boat 18. Titan X gets on a rock and yells at Godzilla, who pops up and yells back at Titan X. Monarch, Tim, Keiko, and Old Shaw realize that Godzilla just showed up to nudge Titan X back on its migratory path and won't fight the Titan. Shaw is like, well, Godzilla knows best, I guess, which is the first of Shaw's wild emotional swings this episode that seem to go counter to his character motivations during the season. Like, remember how Monarch, Tim, and director Barris, who was on this boat last week but is now with the fleet commander tracking Godzilla, kept saying that Shaw and Keiko were fugitives, but now they're calling the shots? Or how Shaw said goodbye to Dr. Suzuki because he was sure he'd die in the desert fight between Titan X and Godzilla, even though that attack only killed one person, Cliff Curtis. Anyway, it all looks kind of cool.
It does look cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty badass staring contest between two titans, I suppose.
If there's a W this season, it's I get Titan X. It's like a full I understand Titan X so much more than like a Rodan or something that shows up later and maybe has a cooler fight, but has like no character motivation for being there outside of I'm a lava bird. Mm-hmm. So like, I think that's cool. As somebody has pointed out in the Monsterverse subreddit this past week, Titan X did scratch up Godzilla's neck, which is more than King Ghidorah ends up hurting Godzilla ultimately when he like bites him. He doesn't break the skin. So there was a brief brawl where Titan X caused a certain amount of damage and Godzilla was like, get back in your hole, which is, as we know, his motivation. But these characters are just learning that about Godzilla, that this is sort of like his purpose.
Yeah, and I will say this. We talked about this last week, I believe, in this storm, about all the potential options for how they get to sort of the end of, how they get to the climactic fight and Godzilla's not there, right? Like, oh, the Navy intercepts them and Godzilla has to fight the Navy while Titan X escapes. That's a way cooler option than this. I'm going to be honest. This is sort of the most anticlimactic way for the confrontation to end, which is just like Godzilla escorts Titan X back to Skull Island and is like, yeah, don't come back. Or I'll be mad next time.
He prematurely woke up from his nap, his Mudo healing nap, and now is back. But I think it's a consequence of the canon, right? Like they can't break
apart the canon and have Godzilla have a huge, fight in the middle of a city with Titan X or do anything that would otherwise have been noteworthy in the movies, because the movies never mention any of this stuff. So it's it's an interesting corner they painted themselves into, and their solutions so far have been like the most boring options.
I am especially going to be disappointed if this season is about, hey, we could change the past, and they could have broke canon and it wouldn't have mattered at all. And instead they're like, let's play it safe so we don't like get ahead of the audience or whatever.
The closest they got was Kentaro dreaming of Godzilla and Titan X having a fight in Tokyo. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Titan X heads towards Skull Island, where they think Kentaro and Kate are with the mysterious third faction. Keiko and Shaw soberly say they need to go back to Skull Island, and after some concerned looks, Monarch Tim agrees. Kentaro, Kate, and Isabel are helicoptering into Skull Island. Kentaro is being pretty emo, Isabel is mean-mugging Kate, and Kate is asserting that Kentaro has either betrayed her or being manipulated by Isabel. Instead of addressing this now in the first scene after the opening titles, Kentaro will wait to answer these questions for Kate until the last scene of the episode. We see Isabel's crew has brought the egg to a valley on Skull Island that is also home to an old and forgotten Monarch base. Keiko, Shaw, Monarch Tim, Cora May, and some doomed Monarch soldiers boat towards Skull Island in some very expensive-looking golden hour photography, Neil.
Oh, yeah.
Because Kurt Russell drives a speedboat looking amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, some good on-location stuff. There is one thing I want to mention. This is probably a good spot, which is,
sure,
in addition to this show not having a good sense of logic for itself, the other thing is I'm a little bothered by how little it trusts its audience to know what's going on, because multiple times throughout this episode, someone sort of very ham-handedly has to point out either that we're talking about Apex or that we're specifically not talking about Apex. Like,
yes,
in the first scene, Cora specifically says, May specifically says Apex Cybernetics. Like, she gives the full government name of the organization so that we're not confused before anyone else just starts calling them Apex. And then several times while they're on Skull Island, somebody is like, well, that looks like Apex, but it's not Apex. So that we know that it's an offshoot of Apex. And then Isabel has to, at one point, give a whole explanation about how it's like her trust fund paying for it. It's like, who cares? Like, who gives a shit? They're all red shirts. They're all just like evil red shirts. And I just want to see the monsters do stuff at this point. Come on.
Cora May has a big device that looks like a giant talk boy with a HAL 3000 light glued onto it. It's tracking the 1962 Lee Shaw device he retroactively planted on Titan X in the past. One of the soldiers shit talks the tracker, and another soldier worries about Kong, so we could set this episode's chase rules. They think Kate and Kentaro are where Titan X is, so they'll go there. But also, once Kong notices Titan X is up and about, he's going to come running. So everyone is trying to get to Titan X, even though the humans want to rescue the Randas mostly, and Kong wants to punch Titan X in the face. Keiko, while looking through Bill Randa's old notes, finds yet another reason John Goodman was on Skull Island, checking for a stable portal to the Axis Mundi that he thought was on the island. So random Kong detour we thought he took in 1973 to secure Monarch funding was actually portal related. This is the beginning of the retcon. I actually kind of like this.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Flashback to the year before Keiko got sucked into the Axis Mundi in 1958, where we get to see a little long but sweet scene of Keiko and Bill Randa being so excited about finding confirmation of a portal in Papua New Guinea that they decide to get married. They wake up, I don't know, a governor of the British territory. I don't want to look it up. And Keiko makes up sweet vows. And while Bill can't think of what to say, I don't know. It's just, why? And what government in 1950? Don't make me look up 1958 politics for this show. I shouldn't have to. Bill can't think of what to say. Right before they get married, Bill comes up with the idea of sending probes down the unstable portal to see if it lets out somewhere else like he has theorized. Back on Skull Island in the present day, sorry, not the present day, in 2017, Isabel reveals that she's invested it in her trust fund and she's invested her trust fund in a bunch of military tech bros who have taken over the old Monarch base. Isabel has Bill Randa's old notes and is looking for the hub rift that can take you, quote, anywhere in the Titan network, unquote. They want to find that rift, lure Titan X to it using her egg, and open a stable portal to the Axis Mundi. It sounds like Isabel wants to set up a camp in the Axis Mundi where people can time travel forward. Like if they were to have a terminal illness, they could stay a month in Monsterland and then portal back up to a cure. Kate accuses her of using the Axis Mundi as her, quote, own personal time travel machine, unquote. But Isabel just stares at her and walks away. Kate then looks at Kentaro and says, literally, whatever this is, it isn't going to bring Dad back. And Kentaro looks at her, says nothing, and walks away because if either of these characters said the interesting thing, which is they're convinced they could go back in time, Kate, who is plagued with regret, might actually be on their side, and this episode would be half over anyway. So everyone ignores Kate.
Because she could go back in time and rescue all those kids that fell in the bus on G-Day.
Imagine blocking this scene, and at some point, Isabel stops talking, and the rest of the lines are Kate's. And it's like, Kate looks at Kentaro. Kate line, Kate line, Kate line. Kate looks at Isabel, Kate line, and just like these actors have to be like, what do I do while she's saying the lines? It's like, I don't know, just look at her, and then stop looking at her. I don't know, man.
No emotion. You're feeling nothing.
You're feeling nothing. You can't give away what this episode is hiding. We rejoin Team Monarch as they hike through Skull Island, and old Shaw brings up that through some sort of wild silence, he was able to talk to his younger self. Well, he almost brings it up, but since Keiko would rightfully have questions about this, he's like, never mind, I'll fill you in after the mission. Also,
which
this
is
one's
some
more of a
real
visual.
Ned Stark. We'll talk about your mother when I get back energy.
Absolutely. It's like this may end up being important on this mission, Shaw, but like, don't worry about it, I guess. Sort of a visual thing. If you were rewatching this episode, there's a lady Monarch soldier who is holding her gun in a way that if she were to fire it, first of all, she wouldn't be able to correctly aim it. And second, I think would immediately snap her collarbone. But that is the least of the quibbles. Monarch Tim trips over a vine strangler vine, kicking off an action sequence that takes out most of our Monarch soldiers and almost gets Cora May, except Monarch Tim is able to win the tug of war thanks to a loose boot. Again, I love how this looks.
Mm-hmm.
I understand we
cool.
need to do it. Yeah, we got that model from, I believe, earlier in the season. So I'm glad we get to use it. It's fun. It's a nice throwback to remember when this thing attacked in Kong Skull Island.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets us thinking about the movie, which we're about to actually revisit. This is enough of a distraction with these vine stranglers for old Shaw and Keiko to end up in a completely different place than Monarch Tim, Cora May, and the remaining two soldiers. Shaw and Keiko decide they might as well start checking rifts left unchecked on Billy's map of possible Skull Island rifts. Back at Isabel's base, Isabel mentions that they're developing an entry craft into the Axis Mundi, and Kate tries to tell Kentaro that she may just be a school science teacher, but she knows you can't change the past. And I'm like, no one has brought up the past, Kate. That was me. That was Recap Dave being like, why are they only mentioning the future? Doesn't the colloquial idea of a time machine go both ways? Those are questions I asked. No one in the show has mentioned the past, because if they do, the episode is over. Mm-hmm. Kate says Dad wouldn't want to see us this way, which is the line Kentaro will throw back at her in the last scene, but not yet. Isabel says that if Kentaro wants to leave, the helicopter will take him to Outpost 18. Kentaro says he wants to stay, and Isabel has Kate forcefully removed to the chopper. Isabel's team notices Kong is on the move, but it's too early for the fight they are planning, so they dispatch a helicopter blasting old skull crawler roars to lure Kong elsewhere on the island. Neil, I don't know that much about Skull Island lore, but I thought he killed like the king skull crawler in like the 70s.
He did. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so, like,
I mean, he killed like the biggest one. So I guess that doesn't mean that they're all completely gone. It just means that, like, you know, maybe there's some anarchy in the skull crawler community because their king is dead, sort of deal. You know, like the idea that Kong sort of put down the skull crawler incursion and sent them back down underground. And,
yeah,
you know, maybe there are still a few of them. But, you know, this is one of the least stupid things that's going on in this episode, where I'm like, all right, that kind of makes sense. And, like, you know, at least that's a recognizable sound and thing from Skull Island, where I'm like, yeah, that might actually work on Kong.
I think it's actually one of the smarter things, because if it is old, if he has put down the skull crawlers, of course he's going to prioritize that over Titan X, because it's not just he hears the skull crawlers first. He's going to where Titan X is and then is distracted by the skull crawlers. Mm-hmm. So if he's like, how did that person come back? Or how did that monster come back? Literally not a person, Dave. Sure. How did that monster come back? Then maybe that's enough to get him to go off.
I do think that Kong, being as intelligent as he is not going to be happy about being emotionally manipulated like this, though. I'm just saying.
Very, very true. Monarch Tim, Cora May, and the remaining two soldiers debate going back to the beach so Cora May and Monarch Tim can relay the track for the chase mission. They are going to Titan X so they can rescue the siblings before Kong gets to Titan X. With no new info, but with several minutes of runtime eaten up, we cut to this old Monarch facility has an observation deck carved into the cliff face. Isabel and Kentaro step out to look at the valley with Titan X's egg in it. Amber Midthunder sells the shit out of the dumbest pitch that Kentaro is the best person to be the Neil Armstrong of Axis Mundi, despite the fact, Neil, he is the only Randa besides his dead grandfather who hasn't been down to the Axis Mundi. Every other Randa,
as far as we know,
Shaw has been... yeah, I guess, I mean, if Bill got into the Axis Mundi, again, that could be the surprise that allows him to be alive at the end of this season.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it is hilarious that she's like, it has to be you, Kentaro. You're the most qualified. I'm like, he's the only one who hasn't been there yet.
She thinks he's the most Randa, when in reality, he's the least Randa.
He is the least Randa. He's the most random. In case that wasn't stupid enough,
Kate's
Isabel
the one that
also
can talk to the monster. Anyway,
I don't know if that's true anymore. We're just about to get there. In case that wasn't stupid enough, Isabel also reveals that in order to build a functioning base on the portal, Kong needs to be dead because he wouldn't allow them to run their business. So they want to lure Titan X to fight and kill Kong. Kentaro realizes how stupid this is since he's been spared by Kong with eye-to-eye contact this year, even, I believe.
mm-hmm.
Titan X wanders into the valley and Isabel's tech bros gas it. Kate, who has been shoved into the helicopter, simply opens the door they slammed on her and exits the helicopter. I was pretty sure Kate and Titan X had some sort of supernatural emotional bond, but I guess that's just over for the season because we just needed to have the well episode. So much happens to Titan X this episode, Neil,
Mm-hmm.
and Kate seemingly feels nothing of it, hears nothing of it, can't track it. Finds the egg seemingly by accident. We don't even get like a shot of her like feeling the wall trying to find the egg or something.
Sure.
Just give us an idea that maybe there's some sort of like
Because she's
resonance.
too stressed out about her brother.
It might be over. Old Shaw and Keiko run across some of Isabel's mercenaries who are also looking at all the possible portal sites from Bill Randa's old map. The mercenaries get recalled because Phase 2 is a go. Keiko finally brings up how odd it is that Billy kept abandoning Hiroshi to travel around the world looking for rifts. She doesn't understand what changed after she left, and Lee correctly says everything. Back to Kazakhstan, 1959, after Keiko had been pulled into the endoswarmer hole, young Lee is fatalist and assumes Keiko is dead. Bill seems shocked and trying to find out a way that Keiko could still be alive. On Skull Island, Isabel explains that they're using Cormay's tech to up the aggression of Titan X to go into a fight with Kong. Isabel gets told that Kate escaped the chopper and is loose in the base.
I
Kate
love this
hides
because
from
it's like, what are we going to do with Titan X? Well, we're going to hit it with the rage virus. And we're going to piss it off.
We're going to piss it off and throw it at Kong.
Great idea.
They're going to do all that before they open a portal. You think the order of operations would be like you have to know where the portal is and establish a link to it if that's like the basis of your business.
Yeah, because a pissed off and bloody Titan X is not going to want to open a portal for you.
I would assume. And like you still can't control it. You could just make it more angry. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. This is actually a moment where I'm against let them fight morally, where this series is usually about letting them fight.
Yeah, which again is something we've talked about as like one of the weird things about this season of television, where they have somehow positioned all of these characters, the monster characters, as being sort of either victims or good guys. Yeah. And the bad guys are the humans. Pretty much most of the humans, with a few exceptions. So it's like, I kind of just want to see Titan X wipe out a bunch of humans at this point. I don't actually want to see Titan X and Kong fight because I like those two.
Yeah.
One's a mother and one just wants to protect his home.
Yeah. In the base, Kate hides from some guards and boots up an old radio just as Isabel's tech bros pull the tracker out of Titan X. The tracker goes dead just as May and Tim pick up Kate's signal. She tells them Isabel and Kentaro are luring Titan X and to find them at the old Monarch base in the valley. So where they were going before that scene starts is where they're going at the end of that scene starting. We just had to realize that the tracker didn't work and now they have to go where Monarch Tim remembers the old base. Perfectly fine scene. These four actors, the two guards, May and Monarch Tim, are trapped on a treadmill of an episode.
Sure.
Where we check back in with them just to be like, we're still going after Titan X, but we're almost done with them.
Sure. And they do get that one funny moment, and I guess credit to Joe Tippett, who's the guy who plays Monarch Tim for at least being solid comic relief, where he like yells at him and he's like, I'm sorry for being a dick. I just like being in charge. And I'm like, I actually do like this character, but only because the performance is fun. Like, there's nothing else about this character that I find interesting.
Let's see. In my probably favorite scene of the episode, Old Shaw and Keiko stumble across the graveyard the bone graveyard where John Goodman's Bill Randa is killed by a skullcrawler in Kong Skull Island. They find his camera, which I'm pretty sure was swallowed along with him in the movie because it flashes from inside the skullcrawler, right? That's a very memorable visual from Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened to that skullcrawler afterward. Like, did it get blown up?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Maybe he pooped it out.
He pooped it out. Anyway, now it's here, monogrammed and very lightly buried. Keiko breaks, realizing this is where Billy died and cursing him for abandoning Hiroshi for this wild goose chase, and we pull back on a regretful Keiko and a bewildered Shaw, literally amongst the bones of their legacy. There's part of me that's like, I like the Sound Soledad stuff in the past, but this entire season could have been on Skull Island, and I would have had much more fun with these exact same character motions. Like, there was like 15 portals we could have checked on Skull Island, which is like so much cooler than, you know, aged up old age makeup Dr. Suzuki, and like all these different things. I feel like we started here and we ended here, and all we really learned is that there's an Apex mercenary group. And anyway, flashback to 1968, Professor Bill Randa explains his theory of cross-circuited quantum entanglements, aka the Titan network. He explains it with Bigfoot. I started thinking about Dark, but this show is not that smart. It's mostly about to say that you could enter in one spot and exit in another. So unlike the Hollow Earth theory, which was his first theory, now he has the theory of the Axis Mundi portals. In season 1, I was led to believe those were two different things. What season 2 asserts through this retcon is no, they're two different things. This Titan network is actually more about time, and location is like some sort of way of moving around. My understanding from season 1 is there's a Hollow Earth that they move in and out of. So like you go into a whole other Earth and then you come out of the Hollow Earth, because that's our understanding, especially in like Godzilla versus Kong, where Godzilla burrows into the Hollow Earth and makes his own tunnel. He doesn't make his own portal.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, and I think, you know, we talked about this, and we may have even got a really good email about this earlier in the season, where it's like, these are two different places, theoretically.
Yes.
And maybe the Axis Mundi is the sort of, because, you know, when they're going into the Hollow Earth in the movies, they have to go through sort of this like
the
Doctor Who opening credits sequence area before they get there. Maybe that's the Axis Mundi, and you sort of have to pass through the veil of the Axis Mundi to get to the Hollow Earth. It does, I will give the show credit, it does at least logically keep compartmentalized the two ideas, because what we don't see in the movies is a bunch of other Titans in the Hollow Earth, right? It's Kong and some monsters, and then the other Kongs, you know, in later movies. But it's not like, you know, Ghidorah's not down there at any point, and obviously Titan X is not down there. So this idea that the Hollow Earth is where Kong and like his people live, and there's all kinds of fun creatures down there, and then the Axis Mundi is where the other Titans live and come from and move around. And I think that's interesting as a concept, but this show has sort of treaded water around it, where we could have spent this whole season exploring that whole idea, right? And we could have spent this whole season going in and out of the Axis Mundi a little bit more, and maybe seeing some cooler monsters, you know, some cooler Titans in there. But
or like the idea of like, where was Godzilla in between the movies? It could have been he was in the Axis Mundi, and I just would have been like, yeah, of course.
Sure.
But instead they're like, no, he's in the temple from the second movie. We just don't have time to address
taking
it.
a nap.
Yeah. Very, very weird. Anyway, I do think this is slightly a retcon. The only thing that this makes me a little bit sad about is Bill Randa the character, had a theory about Hollow Earth, hard pivoted that like he was actually wrong. It was actually a portal-based system, and I don't think lived to see the reemergence of the Hollow Earth theory, as far as I know.
Right.
So he just got obsessed with finding Keiko.
Right, because like the Hollow Earth theory is treated as being, like crackpot science all the way until like, isn't it King of the Monsters? Skarsgård's character is like sort of
That's Godzilla versus Kong.
Although
But
that's Godzilla versus Kong. Yeah. So like even at that point, all the way up to Godzilla versus Kong, they sort of treat it as like fringe science and not entirely worthwhile of exploring. So yeah, Bill Random missed out by many decades, I guess. Unless he's still alive.
So back in the flashback in 1968, we learned that Dr. Suzuki has been making build probes, which you think is something Dr. Suzuki would have brought up in 2017, but whatever. Suzuki tells Randa to go home to his son, and Bill says he can't, not yet. Back in 2017, Keiko and Shaw happen across the final unchecked spot on Billy's Skull Island map, and they find a bunch of probes Billy dumped in portals around the world. 1966 Madagascar, 1971 New Guinea, 1968 Loch Ness. Fuck yeah, Loch Ness Monster Titan. 1972 Kazakhstan. They found Billy's Rift, the Grand Central Station. Also in each of the probes is a letter to Keiko with the vows he couldn't think of in the 1950s. Keiko realizes that Billy didn't abandon Hiroshi to chase Titans. He never gave up on finding Keiko. He went to Skull Island to find Keiko. Retcon deployed. I like it.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I mean, it's one of those retcons where it doesn't like significantly change anything. Like you can go back and watch Skull Island and just assume that he had that buried deep in his mind, and he obviously wasn't going to tell anybody around him that this was what he was doing. So, because again, in the movie part of this universe, they treat Hollow Earth as being sort of taboo science until way later. So, he is in that movie from the jump scamming the government into letting him go to Skull Island in the first place. So like, for most of it, they're like, we're going for a geological survey just to see what's down there. So yeah, it's fine. It makes sense. And I think that this is a good version of the show playing around with the canon and still not breaking anything. So it's like in moments like this, the show proves that it could and can do it if it wants to, and then it doesn't in other areas, and that's why we're frustrated. Here's
what I love about this retcon is not only does it give us something cool about Bill Randa and Kong Skull Island, but I think it retcons Kong a little bit. Because Kong, instead of just being the guardian of Skull Island, has been, as long as he's been around, maybe his family has, whack-a-moling every Titan trying to come up the Grand Central Station.
Sure.
If all of the points lead there, then potentially every Titan that we've seen has tried to come up from Skull Island, and Kong's job is just be like, nope, which is so funny because eventually once he teams up with Godzilla, he comes out of his hole and he's like, wait, no, I need your help. And Godzilla's like, I thought you know the rules of the hole, man. Yeah. You know what the deal is. You are a guardian of the main hole.
And Godzilla clearly in this episode knows that his job is, if a Titan escapes the containment, to get them back to Skull Island inside the storm circle, and Kong will do the rest. So it's like
Kong will put them in the hole.
It is kind of fun that they've been working together, maybe potentially for centuries. But the show doesn't seem quite as interested in that as I would want it to be.
Correct. It has some good retconning, I think, here, but I don't think it's making the best use of it. Absolutely. Back at Isabel's base, they're getting ready to agitate Titan X with the new implants. Isabel makes sure Kentaro is with her since they only get one shot at this, and Kentaro says yes, but looks hesitant. We watch as Titan X wakes up, and then Isabel's implants trigger a neural surge that seems to be working and agitating it. Elsewhere, Kong catches up with the skullcrawler sounds and sees the helicopter. Pissed, he turns back towards Titan X. In a really quick ADR shot from a long distance, Old Shaw second screens the stake saying, "We're running out of time. We have to get Titan X into this rift." And then they cut away without cutting up to a close-up of anybody. It's hilarious. Kate finds Titan X's egg in Kentaro, who is snuck out of Isabel's control room. Kate wants to give the egg back to Titan X so she could go back and hatch it in the Axis Mundi, undoing Kate's portal opening in the season premiere. Kentaro was here to finally answer Kate's question about why he's doing this that she's been asking all episode. He says, "Dad doesn't have to die. We can save him." And with zero people explaining between this week and last week how reverse time travel is possible, we'll have to hope that's what the finale is about, because this is the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, Neil, here's what I think I've learned about the Titans this season. Titan X woke up, came out of the Axis Mundi. Maybe on time, maybe she was disturbed. Kate seems to think she was disturbed. As we mathed a couple episodes ago, she seems to be right on schedule. So then she goes on her migratory pattern, where she seems to be collecting some scarabs from various places and then going to a place where I assume she's going to lay her egg in Santa Soledad, because that's that community seems to be really into it. I assumed if she wasn't interrupted by Apex, that's where the egg laying would have happened and things would have gone as it was. They got spooked by Apex trying to do the neural thing. Didn't work out. So now it's lost and it's off its migratory route. It doesn't know what's going on. So instead it lays an egg in Australia. Godzilla and Isabel, by hijacking the egg, team up to knock Titan X back on the migratory route to Skull Island, where it would have returned with its young at the end of the cycle anyway, or with the egg after it had been incubated for a while. And so Titan X...
If only they had looked at Bill Randa's map.
If only they had looked at Bill Randa's map.
Oh, she's coming back here anyway. We could just wait.
Just wait.
Cliff Curtis didn't have to die. That's what we're saying.
It just seems like, But
that, in fairness, would be a significantly more boring show, because we wouldn't have at least gotten the one fight between Godzilla and Titan X.
Very, very true. So I guess we managed to tweak the migratory route to have a showdown with Godzilla, at least for a little bit. Godzilla was woken up by the Titan phone, but actually understood the situation instinctually and just went back to sleep after back on the migratory route. It was like, cool, peace. I wasn't that big of a deal. You didn't have to wake me up, but since I am up, get back on the thing. And like
Godzilla's like, you could have just waited. She would have left on her own.
Like, look, I naturally wake up when things are out of whack. You don't have to wake me up, but since I'm here, get in there. Fuck you, Cliff Curtis.
He's like, I'm tired of these damn humans waking me up when it's not time.
Exactly.
This is why I'm going to destroy San Francisco again. Do it one more time.
I'll show you. And then Kong just whack-a-moling every Titan who comes up. So our Titan watch this week is Godzilla, Titan X egg still, Kong, and a Vine Strangler. You would think that is a lot, but once again, we have gone through so many loops to get all three Titans in one episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, and at no point in any of these loops have they been close to all three fighting with each other, which I guess is fine. But isn't that what we're inferring by the marketing this entire season? I don't know, man.
Sure.
Well, we kept being like, tune in for the Godzilla show. We put Godzilla in the logo. We were idiots.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where maybe we should have known, because obviously they can't have Godzilla and Kong team up before Godzilla and Kong, the movie. But I hoped for more from this show, especially as the show started to get into its we're going to be able to mess with time shit. And it's like, well, all right, well, now you could just disregard all that canon and have a big 3-way fight between three absolute titans. So why are we not doing that? Why you have that and the iPhone money? Why are you not doing that?
Yeah. And, there is a possibility that they are going to do that and just save it for the last episode. But that feels like me being really hopeful and also trying to get to the storm section before we're there.
Or here's a fun theory. we get through this finale and they try to go through the Axis Mundi in time, but they pop out in an alternate reality where the Titans are loose on this show, where they're loose on Earth.
Joel Kinnaman is going to Mars, and it's for all mankind.
Hell yeah.
Welcome.
But while Joel Kinnaman is on Mars, and he's like 85 years old, Godzilla, Titan X, King Ghidorah, why not? Mecha Godzilla, Space Godzilla, Kong, everybody's there. Let's go. Like, if you're gonna get this close to breaking the canon, just do it. Like, do it all the way. Separate the show from the movies at this point, or have everybody get sucked into Axis Mundi. Kong, Godzilla, all the human characters that we like. Now everybody just lives in the Axis Mundi and is stuck there. And now they have to deal with a world full of Titans and they have to figure out how to live. And then it's just like Lost, but with giant monsters. All of these are better than what we're getting right now.
How did Keiko learn how to spearfish? Let's figure it out with a whole group of like survivors. There's lots of ways it could go. We'll have to find out.
You could even
anyway,
bring
body
Monarch
count this
Tim
week.
along. He'll be fine.
Monarch Tim will be fine. This week, 4 Monarch guards get vine strangled, but that's our only body count. Body count still could be very low if we're just dealing with the Titan fight, but maybe we'll be dealing with other things. Neil, is there anything we need to talk about this episode? I feel like we dragged it appropriately before we talk about episode 10.
I mean, listen, you mentioned the Loch Ness probe. That was maybe the most exciting little Easter egg, I suppose, but I think I've just been beaten into submission by this season where I'm like, oh, that's fun, but they're not going to do that. They're not going to give us a Loch Ness Monster episode or whatever. And, you know, the closer and closer we get to the end of this season, and obviously this is an opinion that could change by the end of next week's episode, the less and less I think that they have anything left in the tank for a third season. Like, right. I almost think that they know that they're not coming back for a third season and that this is just going to be it, and that they're going to move on to the spinoff and maybe other threads that they want to pull on for other shows. You know, I don't think Apple's going to get out of the monster business anytime soon. And obviously Legendary is still going to continue to try to make stuff out of this universe, TV and movies. But I mean, again, especially if Kurt Russell doesn't want to come back for another season, what's left here, right? Like, I'm not going to sit through a third season of the Randa kids just fighting for no reason.
Right. I mean, you might have to end the legacy part. That might be, what we're talking about. Like, maybe the next season of a Godzilla show won't be a Monarch Legacy of Monsters season. It'll just be like, here's a new Godzilla show. Yeah. It is a new Monsterverse show.
It kind of can't be a Monarch show either, because we know what happens to Monarch pretty much right after this, you know, because that's in the movies. So it's a weird spot. It's a very interesting corner that not just the writers of the show have painted themselves into, but the executives who greenlit this show have painted themselves into, where it's like we have this sort of weird end point where if we don't figure out a way around the movies, the show just has to end, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
well, Neil, let's talk a little bit about what we might be seeing on the season finale next week as we enter into the storm. We're back in the storm. Sorry to hurry us along. I can't stand podcasting for the full length of a Monarch Legacy of Monster episode where nothing happens. Like, we made it so much more interesting than it was. We need it to be worth it for the people who are suffering alongside us. There's like 10 people who are still watching the show, and they're really only doing it so they can listen to this part of our podcast. I am my hopes for episode 10, Where We Belong, the season finale, is that we are opening up backwards time travel, because it is very important for Godzilla Awakening to work that backwards time travel be possible.
100%.
So I am invested because I have made myself invested in this. I don't think the show has done enough work for me to be really invested in how they unfuck itself, essentially. But here's the description. Season finale, Kong and Titan X face off in a colossal clash that threatens to reshape Skull Island. Shaw embarks on a dangerous journey. That, I believe, is Kurt Russell going into the past somehow in the Axis Mundi. And then whether or not he decides he wants to be on more shows, I think is possible. Here's my blue sky possibility. All hell breaks loose. Titan X murders Kong, and we're like, what the shit? And that's the climax of this season when they decide to break time. It's like, it wasn't worth breaking time for Godzilla because we still think we have something up our sleeve. But the reason they're holding off on backward time travel is because if you could change something, we haven't run across something that's like big enough to change yet, except maybe Keiko. So my thought is that Shaw goes back, and if he's successful, he pulls out the young version of himself, Hiroshi, and Keiko, and like a version of Bill that slipped in. And our young throuple goes on to be part of the spinoff. Like they all get pulled out in the 80s. They're all part of Red Monarch. Like it's like in this alternate universe, what if the founders of Monarch were actually around the whole time?
Right.
Which I don't think undoes any of the canon in the movies of the Monsterverse. Because the history of Monarch is all rewritten on the show. So I feel like that could be possible. Is something really shocking happens in what we think is the main timeline, and Shaw goes back and undoes time.
Sure. And then that also would kind of explain why Kong is in that weird cage situation at the beginning of Godzilla versus Kong, right? Because they have him in this like dome.
That one is explained, I believe, by some... Is it the comic books? Anyway, so after...
It's like the storm circle starts coming in on Skull Island and makes it unstable.
After Godzilla beats Ghidorah, another Titan sort of hijacks the leftovers of Ghidorah's storm and the Kong Island storm and brings it onto Skull Island.
Yeah. And
not only does that make Skull Island permanently stormy, but I believe that's also what kills all the Iway except for the one girl.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a in between where Kong actually fights this other Titan that brings the storm to Skull Island, but it does permanently change Skull Island. Unless they're going to retcon it with this, where this is the Titanic clash that reshapes Skull Island, which again would be a retcon, but again would be a fine retcon if the point at the end of the episode is we could change everything.
Sure. I do think that whatever this episode is, the where we belong part has to involve taking some of these characters off the board completely, off of the main timeline board.
Yeah.
And I think that's at least Shaw and Keiko. And I don't know, maybe the kids get to survive, but I don't know if they all deserve to. But I maybe they just get stuck in the Axis Mundi. Like I'm trying to think of like what's the blue sky most ambitious, interesting version. I'm like, what's the dumbest version?
What's the dumbest?
Because so far the show has very often pivoted to the dumbest version. And the dumbest version is they just get sucked into the Axis Mundi, and that's where they're stuck forever. Or they get sucked into the Axis Mundi. Well, I guess they get sucked into the Axis Mundi and they get pulled out at a different time is fine. Like if they get pulled out in the 80s, that's good. But if they just get sucked in there with Titan X and we never hear from them again, that's kind of boring. So that I actually think is probably the more likely scenario.
Yeah. I mean, the dumbest way I could think about is everybody's like, we could do it. We could go back. And they're like, nope, you can't go back.
Yeah.
You guys all screwed yourselves. Like you just can't go back. You can't undo things. You got to own your mistakes. You can't go back. End of season. And just be like, oh, cool. So
what was the point of any of that?
Yeah, what was the point of any of that? It's like we everybody got saved above ground or something.
Sure.
That's probably like the dumbest thing.
I mean, the most fun thing, and this is sort of a sinister thing, would be that they get Titan X going back into the hole, and then Kate just pushes Kentaro into the hole.
You want to go to the Axis Mundi? Whoop.
Yep. Kate
Go
antagonists
ahead.
check in right at the end there. I love it.
Real Godzilla news, Neil. Toho has announced they are developing the idea of a Godzilla universe. So beyond -0, they would like to make their own monsterverse of interconnected Godzilla films.
Awesome.
So it sounds like we could be living in an even greater Godzilla time than we are now of competing Godzilla universes that also give us occasional side quests like Godzilla -0.
Sure.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But it does keep the Godzilla fan in me alive despite what Legacy of Monsters Season 2 is doing.
Yeah, well, and I think it could be really interesting because obviously this Legendary's Monsterverse is written from a very American perspective, which it still does achieve some of the core ideas that exist in Godzilla, which is like it's the American military's fault usually, and nuclear proliferation is what made this whole situation worse, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not it doesn't like double down on the American empire good or anything necessarily, but I think that one of the things Godzilla -1 proved is that the Japanese perspective remains extremely fascinating as it relates to Godzilla and has a completely different read on the situation and has, obviously just different cultural reverberations for this story. So I would love to see them spool that out further into what that looks like as a global, like we talked about it last week with the trailer for Godzilla it's -1's the next one, -0.
No, -1 was the
-0
first
is
one.
the next
-0
Yes.
is the next one.
The -0 trailer having the Statue of Liberty in it, the most exciting part of that, whether that ends up being in the movie or not, is the idea of having the sort of Japanese lens perspective on what it would be like to destroy 1949 New York.
Yeah.
That's cool to me. Because that's very different than anything we've gotten from Legendary's Monsterverse, which is obviously set in a different century and from a very, American perspective. So I'm all for it. And I would venture to say that it'll probably be a little bit better because I think it has a different level of reverence for the source material and the subject matter. Whereas like, this Monsterverse is okay being very stupid. I don't find that to be necessarily true about the modern incarnation of Toho, but we know they've got it in them because we've seen some of the previous Toho Godzilla movies and they do get stupid. So,
well, and Toho's also been on this kick of solo Godzilla movies again, which they weren't for a long time. And then the American Monsterverse was launched almost entirely with like a don't worry, we are not the 1998 Godzilla reboot. Like Godzilla is coming out of the gate fighting something. And so the whole it's sort of switched in that back in like the 90s, the Godzilla legacy that they were building was like all this one timeline building off of Godzilla 1985, but it was like linear and you had like this psychic girl and he was fighting different versions of like these legacy monsters that he'd fought before in like the 60s and 70s. And then the American version's like, no, it can't fight anything. It just has to be like a single, like Godzilla attacks New York. We just got to stay on track. And that bombed so hard that when the American one's like, we're going to do it again, it's like, you know what? It is about fighting and it is about linear storytelling. And then the second they do that, Toho takes that to its logical conclusion, which is Final Wars, which is the most fighting and the most plot and also sort of a riff on the Matrix and is like the maximalist way you could do that movie. And I feel like Monarch and the Monsterverse is slowly moving in that direction anyway, where we're like about to fight Space Godzilla with maybe a Kong mech suit. And so it's going to be interesting to see if the Monsterverse starts isolating Godzilla away from Kong again. And then Toho's like, well, if you're not going to, and Toho's like starts another monster fight series. Yeah. Could be great.
Yeah, I'm into
and now
it.
they're shooting movies in native IMAX, so absolutely, it's the time for a new Rise of Kaiju film over in Japan. All right, Neil. We have a lot invested in next week's finale after 9 weeks of this because we need people to be able to go back in time. Why? Let's figure out if you could communicate that to the world as we continue with the.
This alpha predator of yours, Doctor. Do you really think he has a chance?
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
All right. Neil,
Hmm.
would you like to start with this email from Ryan before we kick off our game?
Sure, why not? Ryan took time out of his week to send it to us. We might as well read it. It's also very interesting. Ryan says, longtime listener, going back all the way to the efficiency is coming days of Game of Thrones, an occasional caller / Twitter responder. I adored season 1 of Monarch and was delighted to learn that season 2 was going to bring coverage by one of my favorite recap shows. While the season seems to be having trouble trying to figure out what it wants to do, that doesn't seem to be the case with Neil's budding Godzilla movie. With the dice gods blessing Neil last week, a cast and crew that sound to be floating on Cloud 9, and third act digital effects that are going to carry the film to a fantastic finish, I, an imaginary Hollywood journalist with many trusted sources throughout many areas of the industry, am starting to hear it might be a film that could generate some award buzz. Throughout the game, Dave has said that there isn't really a win condition for this game, but if the film season ends with the award season, maybe our game should too. Now, I'm not saying that it's realistic for a Best Picture contender, but have Neil's leadership and the Dice Gods put the technical categories at the Oscars into play. I've also heard rumblings from the Lupita and Anya Taylor-Joy camps that consideration for the People's Choice Awards and or MTV Movie Awards would be a welcome publicity boost for their growing genre-friendly careers. And even though it is probably unlikely given the darker tone of the film, there's a rumor out of the set that Mads was joking that he'd love to get nominated for an Orange Blimp because his Gen Z-aged kids teased him for not showing up to get slimed when Rogue One was nominated for a Kids' Choice Award in 2017. Fantastic from journalist Ryan. In
Excellent lore.
I love it. So yeah, I mean, listen, Dave, we've been looking for a win condition, and I think this is a good one. We spent so much money on our visual effects that assuming this movie does not bomb, which I have to at this point as the director who's gone through all of this, I can't even allow the alternative to enter into my mind. It must be successful because otherwise my fucking career is over.
Understandable.
Then again, who directed that Godzilla movie in 1998? Was that Roland Emmerich?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. He still made movies after that. So you can fuck up a Godzilla movie and still make movies. It's just, it's not a great thing to do your first time out, I would say.
I think there aren't any win conditions is correct, but we are going to be rolling next week and then interpreting those rolls. So some of them will be like a monetary figure that you made.
Right.
And we'll subtract your budget and we'll see if you cross into, the black.
Mm-hmm.
And then other things will be like your legacy score and your critic score. Like, did you make a good movie? If you do have these insane dice rolls like you did last week on next week's box office rolls, then maybe you win some awards. Like,
sure.
The goal of Godzilla Awakening at this point is to have Neil sort of talk through the process of making a movie. And although I'd love to make awards part of the game, I don't know really what you'd be rolling for there. Like, the performances are in the can. Right. You're marketing this week. So we're going to get box office, legacy, and critic score next week. And using those determiners, we're going to get to talk about what ultimately happened with Godzilla Awakening.
Sure. Yeah, and I would say if those end up being positive, we could probably deduce that it would go on to be potentially something that the studio would want to invest some money into a awards campaign for.
if you end up making more than what King of the Monsters made, maybe they ask you to, direct Godzilla versus Kong, or maybe they need a Godzilla Awakening 2. Like
Take that, Adam Wingard.
There's lots of ways extreme success can go. There's lots of ways failure can go if you get to that point.
Sure.
There is a lot of ways to make negative money because you have to basically outroll your budget. And that's all dependent on dice rolls, which you can get modifiers for and hopefully change. So in order to begin this week's encounters of marketing, the movie is done.
Mm-hmm.
And now it is your job to come up with the 3 things that I promised last week. So we are going to be talking about your trailer first. Then we're going to be doing a merch roll, which was a suggestion of a listener that I really appreciate. And then we're going to be doing a press junket, which is sort of what happens like the week leading up to Godzilla Awakening's release. And those are going to be a fun new type of roll. But all of these things will ultimately give you modifiers to your box office and to your legacy and or critic score. So it's your last chance to get those rolls real high next week. Because of that and some math, and to make things fun, some of these rolls are a little complicated. But in order to help me narrow down exactly how to play this as, both legendary Dave, the studio leader, and a gaggle of journalists and people who love merch, we are going to have a beginning roll here called the studio spend roll. So I'm going to roll a percentage die to see what percentage of your production budget will be spent on marketing.
Oh.
So if I roll a 1, you get a $5 million buy on your marketing.
Okay.
And if I roll a 10, you get a $50 million plus whatever your blow up is. So over your budget in marketing.
Okay. So it's a D10.
It is a D10 that is going to be rolled. Neil, I need you to set a number that is the international marketing threshold. On one hand, the threshold is where the budget on the domestic spend gets a little thinner because you need some international play, flying your stars to Japan or Singapore for premises, etc. On the other hand, if you roll above the international marketing threshold, that opens up your international box office die. So instead of rolling a certain number of D4, you're going to get to roll a certain number of D8 on your finale rolls.
Okay.
Because the international market really likes Godzilla.
Right.
So you could set it to 1. So no matter what you roll, you're going to be marketing internationally. That'll put your international box office to a D8, but that means you have to split $5 million over both your domestic press and your international press.
Sure.
Which is going to affect you later.
Which means we
here.
don't get the PJ to go to Japan.
Correct. And then, if you set it at like 5 or something, then you have a decent amount of success. And so if you roll above a 5, you get a D8. And then also your bonuses above your international marketing threshold can become a modifier on your merch.
Okay. That's only mildly confusing, but I think I get the idea.
Yeah, you just have to decide where you want to set it. And so like if you set it at 1, you're going to have to split any of that budget. Let's say you want to make sure that you do fly somebody out to Japan. So you're going to need let's say $10 million on each side. So you would set it at 4. So if you roll below a 4, you're not sending anybody to Japan, but you're spending all 15 million domestic. And that's just going to work for you in the domestic space. And whatever filters out of that, because Hollywood media goes everywhere, will become a passive international thing. But in that case, very practically, you'd be rolling D4 dice for both your domestic or your international.
Got it.
That's that's a risk for a failure. If you go over that, then you're rolling D4s for your domestic and D8s for your international because you've spent enough money that there's an international awareness.
Okay. I think I want to do a 3.
3.
Because I want to spend a little bit of international, but I also don't want to risk it too much. Sounds good. And I think that's a good risk. If you
there isn't like any immediate penalty.
Mm-hmm.
The penalty will just be resulted as we play out the rest of the week.
Sure.
But there is an immediate reward in that any sort of bonus you get above 3 will become a modifier on your merch.
Come on, D10.
Here we go. Rolling the D10. That is a 5. So you do clear the
Yeah.
international marketing thresholds. And you
PJ.
get 25 million. You get half of your budget.
We're taking Anya and Mads and Lupita to Tokyo.
And that's also a +2 modifier on your merch.
Hell yeah.
All right. It is time for what I've been waiting for all week. Encounter 1, the trailer. Neil, I'm going to have you describe the trailer. And how this differs from other roles is I'm going to decide a value based on what you say on the trailer. And you're going to get to choose between a reputation or a leadership role. So the reputation role is only going to affect the domestic box office because you are not internationally known at this point.
Right.
Or you could choose the leadership role, which will split between the domestic and the international box office. That gets very complicated depending on if you fail or if you succeed. But I'm going to give you a 2 times modifier if you do reputation at the domestic box office. So you might not do that well internationally, but your reputation in the US is impeccable. They're like, look at this guy that never met Harvey Weinstein in his life.
Right. Remember
you're
that
gonna get more
great
box
episode of
office.
television he did?
And so they're going to love that. Leadership splits success over both domestic and international, which at this point is going to automatically give you more international box office because you're now rolling D8s there.
Got it.
So it's up to you because you cross the international threshold, sort of where you want to weight these box office die. So, Neil, describe to me what you think the trailer of Godzilla Awakening should be.
Well, Dave, I think of it primarily as a sonic experience because we open on a black screen. And the first thing we hear is footsteps. Boom, boom, boom. Slow, very slow. And we get a little narration from our guy, Mads. We have some wonderful ADR, that silky, smooth voice, giving us some of the lore from one of his campfire speeches about the Viking warriors and their prowess and the legends that drive the Viking warriors forward. And the legends that lead us to Ragnarok, which is where his story in this trailer ultimately ends. But as he's telling this story, we get little flashes of the battles, up close and personal, warriors fighting warriors, surrounded by fire, atop the mountain. We don't necessarily see the monsters just yet until we get to the end of the trailer. And Mads says, this leads us to Ragnarok. And then we see a shadow, a very large shadow that looks like Godzilla. And off in the distance in this shadow, we also see the reflection or the sort of the lights of Godzilla's spinal column lighting up for his big heat thingy. I forget what it's called.
Heat ray, atomic breath.
His atomic ray. And we see that on the ground. We never actually see Godzilla in this trailer, but at the very end, we hear his iconic roar. And we know, as the audience, that even though we've just watched a trailer that told us we're about to watch a movie about Viking warriors, holy shit, Godzilla is in it. End title card, Godzilla Awakening.
I love it. This is going to work in your favor. I love that you went these Vikings are going to die and go to go to fight Ragnarok, and then oh my god, Godzilla's there. Because if you remember, Godzilla King of the Monsters has oh my god, Zilla, and then there's a bunch of action shot cuts. So I appreciate your subtlety.
Well, and
given that the rest of the Monsterverse is going to not be subtle.
If you remember
going
the
forward.
original pitch, we want a little bit of mystery. In fact, if
Yeah.
I had my druthers, we wouldn't even put the title of the movie in the trailer, in the first trailer. But I think that would be a tough one to get by the studio. We want it to, I want when this trailer comes up in a movie theater, for the first 80% of the trailer, people have no idea what they're seeing. And for them to think, oh, this is just a movie about some awesome Vikings starring some cool ass people that I know. And then, oh shit, Godzilla's in it.
I love it. All right. This I think is gonna be in your favor. So your reputation is your D8 skill. I'm gonna say you have to beat a reputation of 4.
Mhm.
And then your leadership is your D6 plus 1 skill. So I'm gonna say you're gonna have to beat a leadership of 5.
Oh, okay. And
Reputation will be weighted towards success in the domestic box office,
right.
and leadership will be split amongst domestic and international box office.
So there, if I understand this correctly, reputation does have a slightly higher upside,
Yes.
right? Because I would assume I could make more money domestically.
You'll get multiple dice, but multiple dice on a D4
Mhm.
instead of like a single number of success dice on a D4 and a D8.
Got it.
So in order to try to balance out the lower dice, you essentially get a maximum of 4 million per each level of success. So if you roll a reputation of 5, that's 1 level of success. So you get 2 die to the domestic box office.
Mhm.
If you roll a reputation of 8, that's 4 levels of success. So you get 8 dice to your domestic box office.
And it blows up. So I get a whole.
And it blows up.
Um,
Correct.
And then the leadership is fewer dice, or it's just
fewer dice.
one dice for international, 1 dice for domestic.
Every degree of success is split equally.
Okay.
And then any sort of remainder I get to decide based on your trailer.
Well, it's interesting because
description.
I am getting some good marketing money for international.
You are.
So there is a case to be made to try and boost that a little bit. But I also have a feeling, if I know if I want to try and predict how this is going to go, that there is always more potential in the domestic box office, at least at first. You know, the American market is the thick one. And even though Godzilla is a global, property, it's an American version of Godzilla. It's got to do well here first, and then it could spread from there. I think I'm going to go with the reputation roll, and because I also think that gives me the highest upside, because if I would have to roll a 6, or I guess I would have to roll at least a 5 on leadership in order to get any sort of benefit out of the leadership roll, right?
Yes.
So I get the 5 plus 1 would give me a 6.
The leadership role, in theory, gives you, the same amount as your success would be in the reputation role. But because the reputation is a D4 dice and the box office is and the box office is a D8, there's 4 million more in the international if you win on a leadership role. Reputation balances out to basically be what like a hitting it right on would be international domestically. The math is weird.
Sure.
But it is going to be harder to fail a reputation roll.
Right.
Because it's a 4 on a D8 than a leadership 5 on your
on a
D6 plus 1.
Yeah, let's go with the reputation roll. I feel like that's also the least complicated math-wise.
It certainly could be. There was a lot in planning this week where it was like, oh no, am I breaking the end box office rolls?
As long as you don't break your own brain, we'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll be fine. All right, you got a 5.
Oh,
so
okay.
You do get 2 dice to your domestic box office roll.
Listen, so far this game, I've obviously gotten a couple of bad rolls, but it has been a really solid amount of I just kind of barely clear.
Yeah.
And then, last week was an anomaly in getting some crazy ones, but I'm just glad that I'm not constantly rolling 2s.
So I will say the success of this roll means that you have the trailer basically as you described, and then it goes to the title screen and it just says Awakening, and they just have a flickering of Godzilla behind the title.
I like that.
So you definitely see it there, but it is not the focus. It is not Godzilla : Awakening.
It's not the full Cloverfield, but we're like
exactly
50-50. I like it.
We have a title, but we haven't. If you want to, in your merch, take a roll on some Just Awakening merch, that maybe that is something that could be interesting to certain people. All right.
Or like a poster that is Godzilla's silhouette and it just says Awakening.
I think that's great. Let's start there, Neil. I want you to talk about, let's say, some 3 key points of your merchandising campaign. Based on that, I'm going to come up with either a creativity, which is your D20, or determination, which is your D10 score. You have a modifier or +2 from your studio spend to make this thing happen. Success is going to be both a positive modifier to your legacy. So any degree of success, if you have +10, it's +10 to your legacy. And I'm going to give you a die to add to either box office of your choice. So this either helps you boost domestic a little bit or it helps you boost international a little bit. But this is your big place to win on legacy. Your Godzilla merch and your Godzilla stuff could be just collector's items regardless of how your movie does.
Sure.
So what is important to you? Let's say 3 things that is important to you merchandising this movie.
I mean,
we are as we pointed out last week, towards the beginning of the popcorn bucket phase, if you're into that. But I also love that poster idea.
Well, yeah. And listen, if I had to come up with 3 things, there are 3 things that I think are very important, and we would roll them out in phases. The first thing is obviously the poster that I described, and I would get an awesome artist to do it, like Ollie Moss, to do a very minimalist poster that it is like a really awesome silhouette of Godzilla with like smoke and fire around him, and it just says Awakening on it. And obviously we put the names of our cast on there as well. But keep it fairly straightforward but iconic. And also I think that introduces, because the trailer doesn't really show Godzilla, it introduces the audience a little bit to what our Godzilla looks like. The second thing is the popcorn bucket, which I actually think should be Beetle Baragon.
Yeah.
And this is sort of how we roll out the Beetle Baragon of it all, because eventually we're going to have to release a second trailer, and maybe that's where we show Beetle Baragon a little bit. But a very fun Beetle Baragon popcorn bucket, I think would go crazy with the kids, because he's a little silly, but he's also obviously going to fuck shit up in the movie. And I think that, the thing I'm going to talk about next is the very serious Godzilla thing that people are going to want to buy. So let's make Beetle Bear. Let's give him his moment. He could be the popcorn bucket, because he's not coming back for the sequel. So, and then the third thing would be one of those like 1/8 scale, or not 1/8 for Godzilla, but the like 12 to 15 inch tall scale mod. What do they fucking call those things? There's literally like several of them behind me.
The maquettes?
The maquettes. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. And I would like to have obviously a pairing of those, one being Godzilla and one being Beetle Baragon. And, we get some really awesome designers. It's 2019, so we could use this upstart in that's tied to the Alamo Drafthouse called Mondo. They're getting into toys, and we could get a really great artist to make us some awesome maquettes to release as like a limited edition that would go off really well. And I think that would be a really great way to get some adults to buy some stuff, because if that sells well, if we get good pre-sales on that, then maybe we get Hasbro or somebody to make some just like kids toys versions.
I like all of this. Let's say creativity, love the popcorn bucket, and I think the maquettes is smart for those serious collectors. Poster also feels good. I feel like the poster is a little bit of a weight towards people who have seen the movie, if that makes any sort of sense, because there aren't any Vikings in it. Nor is there a Beetle Bear gun in it, but it could be a cool forever. It could be a cool forever poster. That's for sure.
Sure.
So I'm going to say a creativity of 13.
Okay.
And a determination of 6.
Okay.
So positive modifiers to your legacy on a success, negative modifiers to your legacy on a failure. So more at risk with creativity on either end.
Mm-hmm.
And then a +1 box office die to your choice on success no matter what. So if you decide to roll determination, smaller positive modifier, but same monetary rewards.
Sure. Tough one.
And you get a +2. You automatically get a +2 to your roll.
I automatically get a +2 from what?
Because you cleared your international threshold for your studio spend. So the international merchandising is going to help you out.
So on either roll, I get a +2.
On either roll, you get a +2. Interesting.
Well, it's interesting because in my life experience with the D20, we've had some ups and downs, mostly downs. But I feel like this is the moment where we have to pull the D20 out and see what happens, because obviously there's a huge downside. If I roll like a 2, that's rough.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a massive upside there, and I've come this far, so why not?
All right, we need at least an 11 on the die naturally to clear the 13 creativity. Here we go. How does the merch turn out? Ooh, that is a 14 on the die.
Thank you, D20 gods.
So
I can't tell whether I should immediately go play Baldur's Gate or if I should just not and save the luck for later. I didn't do that last week, even though I said I was going to immediately start playing Baldur's Gate 3. So maybe it's just like conserving the luck and the karmic nature of the dice. So maybe I should stay away.
So you definitely get a +3 to your legacy. Neil, you also get to add 1 die to the box office of your choice. Would you like to add an additional D8 to your international? Would you like to add an additional D4 to your domestic?
Let's add the D8 to the international. I mean, that obviously gives us the higher upside. And I really think that over the course of today's rolls, we've really built up a nice solid foundation for some international box office success.
Hell yeah. All right, Neil, here is the part that I thought through and maybe set a big trap for myself. We're going to do a contested roll press tour. Here's how it's going to work. Contested rolls means you and I will both be rolling the same die. Your goal is to beat me.
Got it.
And my goal is to best you. This is going to represent your press tour. You get to choose which trait we're rolling with for each of the 3 rolls.
Okay.
And based on what you choose, I will come up with a scenario that we are role playing for that specific thing. Well, we will talk about it, and then we will contested roll. If you win, you get +1 dice to each of your box office to make lots of money.
Great.
If you fail, you get a -1 modifier to both of your box office and your critic score.
Sure.
So,
and
-1.
Lupita, who I assume is sitting next to me during this press tour, is shaking her head.
Shaking her head horribly.
Like, why did I do this?
So it is a -1 modifier. So I'm not taking any dice away from you if you fail. It is just you are like losing $1 million for every dollar that you fail by,
which actually is credit to the game master on this one. That is kind of how it works. Like if you fuck up a question on a press tour, you could be taking millions of dollars off the top.
Yeah.
Just
and it's
from one gaffe.
It's also contested, so it's not like we're setting something you have to beat. It's more like how much we're putting at risk. So if you pick the D20, I'm going to ask you a creativity question about how you chose to make this movie, as if you were out on a press tour in Japan or something.
Right.
And you get to give your answer. And regardless of what that answer is, we're both rolling a D20.
Got it.
But if I roll a 20 and you roll a 1, that's negative 19 to your box offices, just off the jump, which is the equivalent of 3d4s to your box office
All right.
changes.
This
So
sort gets wild.
That's why you get to choose what things you want to talk about. You are kind of encouraged to have contested roles on your worst features, which does sort of feel like I'm a gotcha journalist on the press tour. I've seen Godzilla Awakening. Am I going to be nice to you or not?
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's find out. Neil, for your press tour, what would you like to have your first encounter roll off of?
Well, listen, I think this is going to come up anyway because of the situation of me being a first-time feature film director. Let's start with experience. All
right, experience. Neil, I saw your episode of television, and I think it's a very particular skill, a very unique skill to be able to walk into a company and able to, execute your vision, which I think is a very different skill from directing sort of a special effects movie that takes place in some like international locations. Mm-hmm. So what had you learned while filming Godzilla Awakening that informed your process? Or were there any gigantic hitches during production that really made you realize that this was sort of a trial by fire?
Well, journalist Dave, that's a great question. And I will say this. One of the things that I would say that I learned off the top is that this process is just as collaborative. Because when you're working with a big IP, a well-known and beloved IP like Godzilla, you do have a lot of folks who have many, many years of experience working with this franchise, both at Toho and at Legendary. So we had some really great partners on this project who had some wonderful feedback as we went through the process. So just like when you walk into a television show and you have a team of executive producers who know every single nut and bolt of that story world, we had a similar thing with this. So every time I would go, a little too far or go astray, especially with some of my weirder ideas, they were there to help rein me in and also be very supportive of us going to some very interesting places. So I think that has ultimately yielded a very unique take on where Godzilla could go and where Godzilla could pop up in time and space and on the planet.
So Dave's score on your contested roll is a 4 because he rolled a natural 1 and you have a 3 modifier.
Oh, he gets the modifier too?
It's a contested roll, Neil. That's how it works. And Neil, you beat me by 1. So congratulations. We get plus one to each of your box offices. Let me write this down somewhere. So +1.
I'm not going to get any phone calls from the home office on that one.
Not going to get any phone calls from the home office. All right. So you can, of course, continue with experience. We could rotate through the press group. Maybe we're in the 4 seasons and you're in one hotel room and they keep bringing in another Dave with another experience question.
Or we're sitting at a round table of all Daves. That's what I'm imagining.
Sitting at a round table of all, that's terrifying.
Me and 8 Daves.
You and 8 Daves and 1 Jermaine Lucier.
Wait, do I get a Jermaine question? Because that would be the easy one.
Hey now.
It would be the dorkiest one, but it would be the easiest one.
It would. What sort of trait would you like to roll for your second of 3?
Let's. I've really done so well with my modifiers. Let's go with the leadership role.
We're going with the leadership roll. You know what? Instead of coming up with a question, I'm going to roll first to figure out how softball my question is. You're completely right.
Awesome.
I didn't know who was asking you the question. All right, so you got a D6 plus 1. So this is a 5 of your leadership questions.
Okay.
Neil, we know that you are working with Visual Effects Studio A. They are the industry standard. They're obviously going to do some great stuff with Godzilla. Recently, there's been a lot of discussions, especially with like Avengers Endgame, being in production and having all these climaxes. What would you say to somebody that said that you aren't actually directing the action in this movie, that it's actually the visual effects house that's directing the action in this movie?
Listen, I can sympathize with that perspective because that is the case on a number of productions that I've heard of from friends in the industry. However, on this project, we've been very lucky and we had a ton of lead time, just a cornucopia of prep time, which means that before I had to dig into costume fittings and set location scouting visits and all of the things that get into a director's life and complicate your schedule, I had a ton of time to spend at the visual effects studio going through their designs for our monsters. And I think that is one of the things that really propels, especially our third act, where Godzilla and Beetle Baragon really shine, is that they had a lot of time to work on it. We had a lot of prep time. We weren't making a lot of changes in the end. Most of, you've heard that we did some reshoots. Most of those reshoots were for adding little story points and adding human characters and doing stuff that was not necessarily huge lifts. There were visual effects involved, but not huge lifts for the visual effects company. Most of the most complicated stuff was done in advance. And I would highly recommend to any filmmakers out there who are going to do a production of this size that the preparation is key. And that is how you get it right, hopefully. And I hope the audience agrees when the movie comes out.
Neil, that beats me by 2.
Yes.
So we're going to add some more dice. Love your answer. Thank you so much for your time. What would you like to do for your final interaction in terms of your traits?
I mean, it really is so tempting to do a creativity roll. Because I feel like that's going to be one of the more fascinating questions. But
it depends on how I roll, honestly.
Yeah, but also that's the one where you could roll a 20 and I could roll a 1 and it absolutely sinks the entire movie.
Yeah. Again, no win conditions for your movie, Neil. It's the real deal here. High risk, high reward.
There's no win conditions for you.
True.
Like there's no official win conditions, but I have.
Can you imagine how depressing
next
week's episode is if Monarch Legacy of Monsters bad and you just utterly fail?
Yeah. No, I need this movie to do well so that this podcast was worth it for the people who stuck around for this podcast. Fuck it, creativity roll. Let's go.
Creativity roll. So you are
wait, what'd you roll?
Next day. You were gonna find out by the question, aren't we?
No.
We're gonna come out and this next Dave comes in. He's like, we've been talking in the hallway.
Oh God.
Just a little bit.
I hate it when
He said
journalists
Beetle
talk to each other.
Baragon?
Yeah.
Is that what we're calling it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
All right,
Baragon, but he's got beetle wings. So we lovingly call him Beetle Baragon. Absolutely.
All right. I rolled a 6. So let's see what your lovingly we call him Beetle Baragon answer actually is. That is a 17.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Beetle Baragon all the way.
All right. So that's
They're going to be saying Beetle
success.
Baragon in the annals of history forever. Legendary popcorn bucket. He is going to be an icon of the silver screen They're going to be asking for a sequel and a spin-off and a TV show. Can't throw enough money at Beetle Baragon.
So that is in total 6 domestic box office die, 6 international box office die, and a critics bonus of 5 that you managed to rack up from your press tour.
Defeated those
which is
bloggers.
no failures. 0 failures. You did it. It seems like your press tour, your Japanese audience, they're all into it. They seem to be liking
Nobody
it. Your
said
legacy
anything
is on the
problematic.
positive
That's
side.
great.
And that critic boost by your defiant Beetle Baragon creativity choice is, I believe, let me look at like last week's statistics. Yes, going to bring your critic score back to a positive modifier.
Hell yeah.
So everything is
Even
looking
though,
up.
again, we did not make it for the critics. We made it for the fans.
Correct. You really set yourself up for a high degree of success here, Neil. We're just going to have to figure out what that translates into next week as we roll a bunch of D4s for the domestic box office, a bunch of D8s for the international box office, legacy score with some bonuses, including a secret bonus, Neil.
Ooh.
That you chose for yourself last week when you prioritized The Visitor as your reshoots. And I told you it was going to end up in a bonus in the future.
Sure.
You're going to get a reaction. You're going to get a reaction legacy bonus after your movie is opened.
Great.
That is going to head into your legacy.
I mean,
the Visitor stuff plays.
I'm not saying that I'm going to go get a fitting for an Oscar night tux just yet, but I am going to make some calls to friends in the industry of, who they like as, for their fashion, just in case.
Could be great. You could make, I don't know, roll a 1 for all of your die and make $10 million domestically. It's also not out of the realm of possibility.
It's also not unrealistic as Hollywood things go.
Or you figure out how to go back in time and your Godzilla movie never existed and we never talk about it again. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it this week for Storm of Spoilers. Come back next week to figure out how Neil does and how this all wraps up over in the Monsterverse. Till then, go out there, be excellent to each other.